Hey there, Titans. In this video, we'll talk about common logic mistakes. Now, common logic mistakes can be coming from literally everywhere, but we will discuss the most common ones. So the first one we'll touch on is a logic loop. Logic loop is pretty simple, is whenever you're affecting a field either from one another and causing the same condition to run again and again, or I'll show you a few instances of this. Pretty simple to create, and that happens a lot. Or let's say you're running a get from Salesforce from a certain field and you're populating that same field over and over again. So let's create a real simple one and I'll show you what this looks like. So what I have here is let's do a quick condition here, and I'll say if this email field is not empty, then what I want to run is a lead get. And let's take a look at this get. So right now I'll look at the mapping and I see it's mapping first name and last name. That's cool, everything is fine. But if I'll go ahead and I'll map the email as well, and I'll show you what this looks like. So basically what will happen is this condition is going to be true. Email field is not empty. We'll run the get will populate that field again, and then the get will run again and again. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, so I'll put an email in here and I'll let the rule run. And you can see that it's going crazy. We want to close this out real quick. And let me just show you again with inspect, and we'll look at the console. Because this is pretty visible because we're running a get, so we see the loader, we see that we're in trouble. Let me just turn on debug mode so we can see it properly. Very helpful. Always turn on debug mode when you're previewing and debugging. So we'll inspect again. Now look at the console. And you can see that this whole thing is running again and again, and this will really help you to realize what you're doing. Okay, so this is one common mistake. Let's quickly fix this. So if I'll go back to my Salesforce and will not map. There is another way to do it. I can in the condition say that if this field was changed, then run it. That will block the circulation as well. But in general, there is no reason to map a field that you're running a get from. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, so I'm just gonna remove this mapping. And obviously if we'll run this again, everything is fine. So that's good. Now, another thing that you could do is, let's say, affect two fields. So we can say if this field is not empty, let's say company is not empty, then I want to set value to, let's say, first name. So we'll affect first name. And then I'll say first name will affect email. Then configure the condition. So we'll say not empty. Okay, now basically what will happen is I affected email. So let's fix this logic loop. So we'll affect company and we'll set value. Okay, so if we'll run this and I'll inspect again, and we'll look at the console, and you can see that some bad things are happening here. So you can see that immediately you have a logic loop that right now we had the email being affected. This is why it stopped it, because the first name was populated to empty, But if I will just quickly fix this. And we'll run this again, and you can see that this condition here is running many times. So all you want to do is make sure that nothing is affecting one another, and obviously you can easily see from the conditions on each field what's affecting it, and you can easily filter out what's going on if you get into any logic loops. And that could cause by many things, but mainly it's either you're triggering the condition again and again, and two fields or more fields in some cases are affecting one another and causing the whole thing to re-trigger over and over again. Another mistake is, let's say I want to have a condition that if first name is not empty, I want to make last name mandatory, or I want to make email mandatory. So what we always need to do is to configure the condition on the controlling field. So if the first name is not empty, then I want to affect other fields. So what I would do in this instance, the correct way to do is to configure the condition on the field that you're triggering it from. So in our instance, first name is not empty, then I want to go ahead and affect everything that needs to be affected from it. What I do not want to do is head over to the affected field and have the condition from there. So I don't want to have a condition that says first name is not empty on the wrong field, and then I want to do the actions that I want to do. So you always want to configure your actions on the field that's affecting, not the affected field. Another thing to consider in general is order of operations. You always need to think about how is everything triggering. And that's mainly whenever you're dealing with conditions, in any conditions, but whenever you're dealing with conditions that run whenever the page is loaded, you want to know what's running. When is your gets running? Like if you're populating data from Salesforce, you want to make sure that it's actually populated first, and then you're running the conditions. In general, you want to make sure that the field that is running the condition will be populated at the time that the page is run, so that condition can run. And it's very important to place your conditions in the right place. So let's say if I'm relying on a page variable, then I want to make sure that I put the condition in the condition tab and not on the every time, because when the variable changes, then the condition is not going to run, because it's only going to run on the page load actions. And we have a whole video on page load actions, very important to watch, and on variables, very important to understand. Similarly, you want to place the conditions of global variables in the correct place, which are at tools, custom variables, and conditions. So whenever you want to run a condition, when a variable, global variable changes, you want to put it in the condition tab and not in the first time or every time load of the page. So again, you want to make sure that your conditions run in the correct order, and you have the data to support these conditions at the time these conditions run. Another common mistake, and it's a little bit of a deviation, is showing and hiding something. So let's say I will say, and particularly with strips. So let's give the strip a name, and I'll say test strip. And let's say I want to hide the strip, let's say whenever a button is clicked. What many times happens, so let me add another node here, and I want to affect an element, and I want to go to the strip. So I'll say test strip. So many times you can see that this is the strip column, and I'm hiding the strip column. I want to make sure I'm hiding the actual strip. And you can see that this is confusing because I just called this test strip and it's actually showing the strip column. I did this on purpose because whenever you're dealing with a strip, you always have two options, either the column. So what will happen now is that it will hide only the column, but the strip will actually stay there. So you'll still have something there that's not completely hidden. So every strip has at least one column. You can have more than one columns in that strip. And that then will make sense if you want to hide a single column, out of the multiple columns you have on that strip. But in normal instances, when you have just one column per strip, you want to make sure that you're working with the strip itself and not the column. So we have this guide here that could shift between the strip settings and the column settings. So you can see I gave the wrong metadata name to my strip. So this will be this strip column. And then I want to switch to the actual strip settings and I'll say test strip. Now if I go back to my condition and I'll affect the strip, I'll do test strip, this is what I want to hide. I do not want to hide that specific column. And again, if you have multiple columns and you know what you're doing, you want to hide a specific column, that's great. Other than that, you always want to make sure you hide the actual strip and not its column. And that's how it's done.